Hi, this is Remy. Today we will look at the Jenkins example integration test provided by Ticketfly. This example provides some integration tests that you can run against a Docker image that has Jenkins in it. So why would you want to run integration test on a Docker image? So I'm going to refer to the Docker Hub page and look at the reasons we highlighted to run integration tests. So like any code, the code to build your Docker image, the code to configure your Jenkins, the code to create your Jenkins jobs through the DSL should be tested. And more than anything, this could be very costly if you get some failures in your pipeline because of the configuration of your Jenkins or because Jenkins doesn't start, and a lot of things can go wrong. One of the common use cases also is when doing upgrades. So what we're going to show you in this example is how you can safely upgrade Jenkins version and Jenkins plugins and testing your Jenkins before doing the actual, pushing the actual upgrade of your Docker image through your production Jenkins. Another error that can happen is your DSL script. So if you are using the Jenkins DSL plugin, that means the Jenkins jobs that you create are created programmatically. But what if there is an error in that script? How will you catch this? So having integration tests will allow you to check that the configuration of your jobs is correct and also run some of the jobs and verify that the output is correct. And finally, another thing can go wrong is the startup script. So every time you start the Docker image, Jenkins Docker image, you will run the startup script. And you can do a lot of configuration in that startup script. But what if something goes wrong in that script? And we will see that we can actually check that the startup script was executed properly. And actually, this will help you to make some changes to the startup script and test that you didn't break it. So let's start by downloading the example from GitHub. So this is called Ticketfly Jenkins Docker example. And the example that we're looking is the number 3 integration test. So I have the example on my local. Now what I'm going to do is build the image. So I'm going to use the Gradle task that we have provided. And so that's Docker build. So now I can do Docker run. And I will actually run using Docker detach. So I won't see the log output here. And it will give me the command line back so I can run the integration test in the same terminal. Okay, so Jenkins is started, so we should be able to see localhost 8080. And this example comes with a seed script that is running a DSL script that is running, that is creating a job called a simple shell script. And let's run our integration test. So to run the integration test, you just have to do Gradle integration. And the integration tests are executed against the Jenkins that is currently up and running at port 8080. And here it took 11 seconds and we have executed 6 tests. And let's take a step back and look at what are these tests are testing by looking at their source code. Okay, so I have my projects open here, and I'm gonna go into the source folder, and then under integration, that's where I will find the test code. There is a common class that is here, And that command class is the wrapper that we use to talk to the Jenkins CLI. And we have a few utility methods that we can call when testing. Some interesting ones here. We can run a Groovy script directly in Jenkins and get the output back. We can get the output as a JSON. And there are a lot of methods that we can use to manipulate jobs. So we can get some job configuration, get the job as a JSON. We can get the view, and we can also get the last build. And for job manipulation, we can create jobs, update, delete, enable, disable, and build the job. So let's look at the actual test that we are executing in this example. So we have two classes. The first one, instance spec, is running some Groovy script against the running Jenkins and checking the output. So we have a test that is checking that the version of Jenkins is the one that we expect. So it's running a Groovy script on Jenkins and then capturing the output, and the test is checking that the output is actually the version that we expect. Another test is similar, is running a Groovy script to get the list of plugins and checking that in that list of plugins we have the expected plugins that we need for our Docker image. So in that case, we want to make sure that the GitHub plugin and the job DSL plugin are installed. So that's what the test does. Next step is to make sure that the seed job was executed. So to do that, we will check that the first and last build number was 1. So that means that build was executed, and that was executed only once. And we will also make sure that the last success was also the number 1. So that means that job was executed once and was successful. And if you look at my Jenkins here, the seed job was executed once and it's successful. So that's what the test verified. The last Groovy test here is to check that the markup is configured as HTML. And this is a config that is done in the init script. And this Groovy code is getting the markup formatter and getting the name of the class that is used and making sure that this is the HTML markup formatter. If you are curious to see where that is coming from, you can look at the Docker image. So in the Jenkins home, there is a startup script, and the startup script is doing configure markup, and that configure markup is actually setting that class HTML markup formatter. So this is where that's coming from. If we would want to fail that test, we could comment out this line and run the build and run the Docker image, and then the test would fail. So this is to show you how to test the startup script through an integration test. The other tests are job tests. So as we have seen in the command class, we can manipulate jobs. And this is actually the really powerful feature here. Imagine that you are an organization where you are running like a few types of job on your Jenkins. For example, let's say you want to run Node jobs, you want to run Java, you want to run Scala jobs on your Jenkins. What you would do here is that you would configure some really simple and fast running jobs using this different technology, and you will ensure that these jobs pass every time you make a change. So for example, if you want to upgrade the JavaScript plugin, then running the JavaScript test will ensure you that all the JavaScript jobs will still pass once you release a new version of the Docker image. And that is very powerful. In our example, the idea was to show something that is very quick to execute. So we are using shell script here. So the first one is getting that simple shell script. So we have a job called simple shell script that is deployed with the Docker image. And this test will run it and check that the output here contains ABC. That's what the job does. That's a really simple job to show a working example. And so this test is just doing this. So it's getting the job name, and it's building the job programmatically from the integration test, getting the console output and checking that the console output contains the string that we're looking for, and doing artifacts and having the string finished success. So this is exactly what we see in Jenkins if we look ourselves. So that's what this test does. The next one is interesting because imagine you don't have a job populated, but you can also create a job on the fly. And this is where you can also use the DSL on the fly. So here we go. So we create a job, and that's the name of the job. We will just, for this test, we'll just inject random UUID just to make sure that this test is always different. And we'll create a job. And this job will be created with the DSL. So this is a DSL block here. We have the job and we have the DSL block. And this is calling the steps, and the steps is running shell. And if you are not familiar with the DSL, you can look at the example that we provide for using DSL. But in this block, you can basically programmatically create a job. And this is the test that you could change and make to your need if you want to test different implementation of jobs. Let's say you want to have a JavaScript call, you could have steps to call JavaScript here and test the output. But for this test, let's keep it very simple. This test is making sure that you can write an integration test. So it's creating the job, building the job, getting the output from that job, and then checking that the job was created successfully. The build was successful as well, so 0 is for success, and making sure that the console output of that job contains the random UID that we set when we run the test. So, and that test, as you can see, that test passed as well. Create a job on the fly, passed. So that's basically the example. So now what I want to do is to show you how we would run this test whenever we make a change to the Docker image. So let's make a change here to upgrade our Docker image to use the latest version of Jenkins, which is Jenkins 2.7.8. So let's just update to be using 2.7.8, and then because we're using wrapper, the Gradle wrapper here, we can change in Gradle as well. And then I will do a Docker build. So I'm not sure if it's 2.7.8. Oh, I think it's 2.7.5, but let's check. $275, let's see. Okay, yeah, so that's 275 is the latest. So while this is downloading all the plugins, I'm gonna pause the video and take it back as soon as it's done. All right, so I'm done building the image. So it took less than a minute. And then after running the image, I stopped the running container and I started it again doing Docker run. So now we should have a Jenkins started that should be updated. So it used to be version 2.32.1. And now if I refresh, we are at 275. So that upgrade was done. So now the next thing I want to do is to upgrade all the plugins. So I'm going to just go here in the plugin configuration and then pick all the available upgrades. Okay, and then install all of them. So I'm going to pause here while this is downloading all that list. Okay, so Jenkins was upgraded. All the plugins were upgraded to the latest version available. And now we're just going to check that everything is correct. So I'm going to go into the plugin menu. And as you can see, there's no updates available. So everything is up to date. And Jenkins is up and running with the latest. So now what we want to do is to capture the list of the plugins that we just installed. And for this, you can run a curl command. And this is the curl command that is provided by the official Jenkins image. And I will also add it to the README file for this example. And once you have the list of plugins, so this is the current list for the running Jenkins, you can upgrade the Docker image to have that list installed whenever you build that image. So if you go to the plugins, so as you can see here, like that upgrade actually pull a lot of new plugins. This is something that could be scary, but in that case, we are confident because we can run integration tests against the new version of Jenkins. So now this is what we're going to do. Okay, so now we can stop our plugin, stop our Jenkins. So Docker stop, and now we can build it again. So this time we will build with the latest version of Jenkins, but also with all the installed plugins, the new list of plugin version that we want to install. And I'm going to pause it while we are downloading all the plugins. Okay, build was done successfully. And then we started Jenkins, Docker run, and now we should have Jenkins up and running. And that will be the latest Jenkins with the latest version of plugin, all baked into the Docker image. So now that we have the upgrade completed, we want to run the test. So let's go ahead and go do integration. And as you can see, it's running against the latest version of Jenkins, so even the test is getting the latest dependency for that new version of Jenkins. Okay, and now we have one failure, and the failure is in Jenkins instance spec, line 19. Okay, and this is the test that is checking the version of Jenkins, so we'll update it to be 275. We will run that test again. Okay, everything passed, so it means that we are confident with our upgrade. We have run some jobs that are similar to the job that we have in production. So in that case, it's a very simple shell script, but you can adapt this test to a more complex job, as complex as you need, as hard as you want to test this. You should you should make it more a better fit for your need. And now what I want to do is I want to push this to GitHub, to Docker Hub. So now I'm going to do Docker push because that was tested successfully. I'm ready to release a new version. And I will quickly pause it while it's uploading to Docker Hub. Okay, so it pushed the new image to Docker Hub. It took 40 seconds. And now we should be able to go to Docker Hub. And in the tags, we should see, okay, there is a new version 275 that was pushed a few seconds away that is available. So in this example, we've seen that it's possible to run Jenkins test on the upgrade that you will do to your Jenkins Docker image. And you can test not only the new version of Jenkins and plugins, you can also test the DSL script by running some jobs directly. You can also test the startup script if you have any Groovy code that is executed when you start Jenkins. And the test coverage is as much as you want. So if you want to be very confident every time you make a change, you can add a lot of tests. This is a good template. The tests are using the Jenkins CLI. You can run any Groovy code against a running Jenkins, so you should be able to test anything. There is no restriction here. One last thing we could add here is that it's also possible to run this test on CI. So it's also possible to run this on Jenkins, and this is what we do here at Ticketfly. So think about it. Every time we make a change to the Jenkins Docker image, we submit a PR, and that PR is actually tested on a Jenkins, and that Jenkins is started is building that Jenkins image that is pushed, starting the Jenkins and running the integration test against that Jenkins. So we're using Jenkins to test a change in Jenkins. So it's a little bit of meta testing here, but it's very important to be able to catch these failures before you merge to master, before you deploy your Jenkins. If you publish an upgrade to your Docker image for Jenkins and then you break all your CI, this is going to be very costly. So if you can automate as much as you can to catch these potential errors, as you can see here, this code, the DSL code, the startup script code, the plugin upgrades could be very risky. And with this model, you should be able to test every change to your Jenkins Docker image before you push it to be the new image in prod. Thank you.